This video is sponsored by Squarespace. More about them later in this video. We'll be looking at monitors starting as low as roughly $150 to $200 US, and the most expensive one comes in at about $1,200. So we'll be going over a lot of different monitors for pretty much any budget. Of course, I'm mostly gonna recommend monitors that I've actually tested myself, but to give you a bit more of a complete picture, I'm also going to talk about some monitors that I haven't tested, but that have been extensively reviewed by sources that I trust. Now, the most affordable monitor I'm going to recommend is the Gigabyte G24F. This is such a good monitor that it honestly doesn't make too much sense to buy anything cheaper. You can get this for as low as 160 US if you're a bit lucky. And this actually is one of the fastest IPS monitors of the 144 to 180 Hz class, which is kinda amazing for this being such an affordable product. Now, there are a few alternatives to this monitor in case it isn't available in your region or is just much more expensive. But I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to link some alternatives down below in the video description. The G24F is my #1 recommendation though, closely followed by the Asus VG2449Q, so I highly recommend getting one of these two if possible. Now, if you're willing to spend up to about $300, you can shop for 27-inch 1440p monitors, which are a noticeable step up from the smaller 1080p monitors of the sub $200 class. And my #1 recommendation still is the MSI G273QF and QPF. The QF version has a tilt-only stand, and the QPF version has a fully adjustable stand, but this otherwise is the same excellent monitor. It has one of the fastest IPS panels of this class, a wide color gamut, and a decent color accuracy out of the box. In case you're looking for some alternatives to the MSI, I've made an entire tier list video about the best 1440p monitors of this class, which I'm gonna put in the video description down below, as well as some links to the other highly recommended monitors you might wanna check out. With a $300 budget, you can also choose to go a slightly different route and trade resolution and size for speed. So if you're into competitive FPS, it might be a good idea to get a 240 Hz 1080p monitor instead. If you're in the US, you can get the ViewSonic XG2431, which sadly isn't available in Europe. But Europe has the AOC 24G2ZU, which is a great alternative that also comes with a pretty fast 240 Hz IPS panel. If high refresh rate gaming is important to you, this is a great bang for the buck, and it still has a nice image quality thanks to the IPS panel, even though it's just 1080p. Before we take a look at the more expensive options, here's a word about the sponsor of this video. Squarespace makes creating and running a website super easy. You start by choosing a template from their huge library, which contains great looking templates for basically any type of website. To make your website stand out, the design panel offers hundreds of custom settings that allow for deep customization. And Squarespace automatically optimizes your website for mobile as well, making sure that it looks good on any device. You can try out the design process for free, and when you're ready to launch your own website, use the code TECHLESS to save 10% of your first purchase of a website or a domain, or just go to squarespace.com/techless. Back to the video. Now, if you're willing to spend about $500, you don't necessarily have to decide between a nice 1440p panel and a high refresh rate, because this buys you a 240 Hz 1440p monitor. And my #1 pick in this class is the Gigabyte M27Q X. Just very recently, a monitor like this would have cost you about $200 more. But the M27Q X usually can be had below the $500 barrier, which is pretty amazing for a monitor like this. If you're playing a lot of FPS games, but also want a bit more resolution for things like working with text or content consumption, a monitor like the M27Q X is pretty much the best you can currently get at this price point. By the way, it's in the background on my desk right now, as I'm currently working on the review, which will come out soon. Now, I'll link some alternatives to the M27Q X in the description down below that perform very similar, but they'll probably be a bit more expensive depending on your region and when you're checking prices. In case you want even more hertz and in return can live with a smaller 1080p monitor, I'd recommend the 390 Hz Acer XV2522F, which actually costs less than $400 US these days. And this is one of the best monitors for competitive FPS that money can buy. Especially the 390Hz backlight strobing is just something else and looks amazing with games like Valorant and such. And unlike a TN panel monitor, which still are pretty common in the competitive FPS world, this actually has a good image quality with vibrant and accurate colors. As an alternative, I'll link the Asus VG249Q down below, which is a fairly similar monitor, but it's only capable of backlight strobing up to 240Hz, which is a bit of a shame. Now, if you want nothing but the highest resolution that's currently available with gaming monitors, you gotta spend between about $500 to $800. That buys you a 4K IPS monitor of the 144Hz class, which is amazing if you're playing a lot of visually appealing games, but also want to be reading a lot of text, editing photos or videos, or just consuming a lot of content. For a 28-inch monitor, I'd go with the G70A by Samsung, which sometimes is also referred to as G7S28. But this has not much in common with the curved Samsung G7, but rather uses a flat IPS panel. If you're looking for a larger 32-inch monitor, which definitely is a viable size thanks to the 4K resolution, my choice here would be the Gigabyte M32U. Now, I wish I could tell you that you don't need to make any compromises when spending over $1,000, but that unfortunately isn't the case. But at the very least, this buys you the latest and greatest the monitor world has to offer, which is high refresh rate OLED monitors. The Alienware AW3423DW has a quantum dot OLED panel, to be a bit more specific, which also delivers those super deep black levels and basically the fastest response times you're gonna get these days. I have yet to review this monitor, but from what I've seen so far, the Alienware QD OLED is a great monitor. And there honestly aren't that many alternatives, as other OLED monitors are yet to be launched. So currently, there aren't really any other options to choose from if you want an OLED monitor that's not actually a TV in disguise. But keep in mind that this panel tech still isn't without its compromises. A very high-level summary is that the image doesn't look that good in a bright room, and that the unusual pixel structure can be a bit annoying with text. And of course, you won't get the super high pixel density that a 4K display offers, and are limited to the 175Hz refresh rate, as opposed to the up to 390Hz you can get with IPS panels these days. I hope this video helped you finding the right monitor for you. Thanks for watching, bis zum nächsten Video.